Welcome to the Blending In podcast, where we chat with innovative educators who are integrating EdTech. I'm your host, Ashley Azarlu, and I'm so glad you're listening in today. As teachers, we don't often get the chance to see into the classrooms of our colleagues, but by listening today, you'll get an auditory peek into the classroom of social studies teacher Tasha Burton from Diamond Valley Middle School. So welcome, Tasha.
Hey, nice to have me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. I know Tasha and I have been trying to get together for like a year to do this recording, and schedules are just so crazy that it
Yeah,
just did not work out until today, but I'm glad you're here.
I know. Like, we'll make it happen.
We made it happen. We made it happen. Okay, so tell everybody a little bit about like who you are, how you got into education, how you got to be where you are now, just so they can get like a little base level of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm a teacher at Diamond Valley Middle School. I teach seventh grade history, but I also do the leadership class plus. And when I originally started out 14 plus years ago, I originally wanted to be high school and high school only. I remember in my credentialing program, they were like, "Hey, we have an opportunity to credential in middle school." And who wants to do that? And I'm like, not me. You have to be crazy to teach in middle school. So I was like, high school history all the way. And I did. I did 2 years in high school history, but then the housing bubble crashed. Nobody was hiring, brand new teacher. They were like, ha, bye. See you later. And I was like, oh, where am I gonna like get a job? So I was just applying everywhere and anywhere back in 2009 just to try to find a job. And everything just kept popping up as middle school, middle school, middle school. And I was just like, oh,
It was meant to be.
it was like, it was. And it was a 1 year contract. I'm like, okay, I can do it for 1 year. I'll apply for this position. I didn't even know where it was. I'll click it, go. And then lo and behold, it was Hesperia. I had to Google it. I was like, where the heck is Hesperia? I was like, oh, it's by Barstow. Got it. High desert. So that 1 year contract turned into 7 years, and it was just awesome and amazing. And then I was like, wanted to come down into this area to be closer next to family. And again, I was looking around and I was like, I really like middle school. I don't know if this is brilliance or crazy, but like I want to do middle school still. So then I got Diamond Valley
They
Middle
kind
School
of grew
seventh
on
grade.
you, huh?
I did. It grew on me and attached. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm now that weird middle school teacher, but it fits. It fits. I like it. So
That's okay. I love
yeah.
middle school too. That's my background is all, give me all the 13-year-olds all day long. I'll spend my day with 13-year-olds.
I know
I'm
they're
blessed.
hormones on wheels. You don't know if they're going to cry on you, be silent on you. I don't know. It's an interesting experience. Interesting.
They keep us guessing.
Exactly. It's a mystery every day. It's a mystery classroom.
Yep. Yep. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad that you got into middle school because that's how our paths crossed. So I was an instructional coach at Diamond Valley where you were, and I think we were maybe at the same site for like 1 year. It was like
Yeah. Yeah.
serendipitous that our paths crossed. And I just remember going into your class, and part of a job as an instructional coach is you get to see like everybody's teaching style and all the different content areas. And I just thought you were so engaging and dynamic, even back then, like pre-pandemic, before technology like really boomed, you were doing innovative things that other people weren't doing. And I was super impressed with you. So I definitely was like, I gotta have her on the podcast.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I first started out, I was definitely like paper, pencil, textbook, like core things.
Sure.
Especially when I was like teaching in Temecula. But then when I went up into the high desert, at Ranchero Middle School, we got in a admin that was like, tech is the future.
He
Like,
wasn't wrong.
yeah, I know. He was like, we're going to be a demo school. And we're all looking at him going like, you are crazy. Google what? Who does Google? I like Google Doc, Google Slide.
I
And
know how things have changed.
I know. And looking back at that, as much as it was like a hurdle going through, and we had these Google trainings and learning how to share documents and type on documents together, and then like, creating a Google Drive. And I mean, at the time it just seemed like light years. I'm like, dude, just copy it. Why can't you just write on it? You know what I mean? And but looking back, I was so happy that I had that admin that really pushed our site
Yeah.
to be tech, and like, because the only tech that we had in the classroom was the Elmo.
Yeah.
I was like, that was it, Elmo. And I mean, if you had one that was like a colored, like, or even had a little mic to it, I mean, you were like super techy on campus.
Okay, can I just tell you, when I first started teaching, I had an overhead projector. Okay, like that's how ancient I feel right now with
So I know, so you were
evolution.
Elmo status, man.
I
You were
I
like,
evolved too. I totally evolved with the tech as well.
I know. I remember like when I was sitting in the interview, and the principal was like, "Do you know how to use an Elmo?" And I was like,
What's that?
tickle me, Elmo." I literally said that in the interview, and they started crying. I'm like, "I thought we were talking about history. How did we get a tickle me Elmo doll in here?" And
That's amazing.
she was like, "That made it. That made me want to hire you."
That is amazing. I love
Yeah,
that so
but
much.
no, but then from there, I mean, again, that admin pushed us. I don't know how he did it, what strings he pulled, but then like the Promethean panels, we were also a demo site for that. And so having the Promethean come in and do a demo, and we're like, oh my God, are the kids like going to break this thing? How can you use this giant TV in your classroom?
Yeah.
And like right on it, it's touchscreen and multiple people. But I mean, through our PLC process at my grade level and at my site, we really started to develop and incorporate, tech lessons, and it was cool. So then when I moved down here, and working with this PLC team, and it was just kind of like, hey, this is what I have, and it wasn't like every lesson. It was like, okay, at least one unit has some type of tech element, whether it's like incorporating a Chromebook or Promethean panel. But at the time, you had to be a techno teacher
Yeah,
to
right?
get one of those. I think I even hunted you down like, hey,
Can I get one of those for my
can I
classes?
get, I'm
Yeah.
like, I got lessons for that.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I mean, that really kind of opened my eyes to how technology can be incorporated into the classroom and utilized, and how you can build up like those 4 C's: creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and
Yeah.
really just kind of elevate your classroom.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think it's like everybody has to have their own epiphany about this at some point in their career if they're a teacher. Like you go from like pre-tech and using tech for tech's sake to really understanding like what you can do with it and how it can really inspire your students to be creative and think deeper about what they're learning. And so that just like really makes me nerd out. I'm sorry, I'm super nerdy.
No, no, no. And I mean, I thought it was techie too until like COVID hit, and
Oh,
then,
right.
oh my God, that was stressful.
That was
So
super stressful.
I was even like, oh my gosh, what are we getting into? And what is this Google Meet? And how do I navigate this and teach my classes online? And again, it was like I was so scared to embrace the tech. I mean, I was like hesitant, but then once I just like go, okay, what was the worst that can happen? Google Meet crash.
Yeah.
like
Okay. Can we just have a moment, a reality check moment here for a second? So Google Meet was the platform that our district decided to use for online learning. And then when the pandemic happened, I had maybe used Google Meet like twice before
yeah.
that. And then they're like, okay, you're the tech specialist. So let's teach everybody how to use Google Meet. And I'm like, wait, what? So I had to like literally like
I
myself
I
everything I could about it just to
I
be
know.
teachers
Yeah.
in the pandemic. Like that's how I've learned a lot of the tech because I know I have to train other people on it.
I know, and I think that's what happened too when you guys were doing like that tech conference, which was amazing and like helping
Oh,
us
Tech
really through.
Fest. Yeah.
Yeah, the tech fest. And it was kind of like I just brought up to my school site, hey, there's this program called Cami. I don't know, my kids, and they're like, okay, cool. Can you present on it? I'm like, what? What? I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this
And our
is.
district adopted it. Like we adopted
Yeah.
that platform because it was such a great tool for all teachers to use in basically any content with whatever they
Mhm,
needed. So
mhm.
yeah, thanks for teaching our teachers how to use Cami during that time.
Yeah, and I was like, uh, 2 weeks into this. All right, let's go. I guess I can teach the whole district now on how to do Cami.
Yeah. I mean, literally, we recruited every like slightly techie teacher that we could to be a part of that and be presenters to just share the learning with everybody because we were all in the same spot of like, okay, we're going digital and everybody needs to know how to do all the things
there's
right now.
there's no option. I know. And but like
Yeah.
But from that, like that first like week, 2 week, month of stress and not knowing and like all that inundation of information, but once you just like released and just was like, it will be what it will be. I'm just gonna roll with it. This is what I do in my classroom, and how can I do it and make it digital? Just that freedom of that and the
Yeah.
creativity that came out of it, like there were some really awesome lessons. Now, let's be honest, there were some bombers, but
Yeah.
there were some that were like, oh, nope,
That did not work. We're going
did
to try
not
that
work.
again differently next year.
Yeah, but then there was some really cool things that came out of that period. And I think it really changed education and really
Mhm.
changed again that dynamic. There was a shift in the classroom. And
For
I
sure.
I I mean, you can argue one way or another, but I thought there was some really cool things that came out of it.
There were some really cool things that came out of it. And there were also some really enlightening things that came out of it as far as like equity and like learning gaps and things like that. So since we've been back from the pandemic and we're back like into the classroom setting now, technology hasn't just gone away. It's still with us and we're using it all the time. So how has blended learning made your classroom a more equitable learning space for our kids?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw that. You had those students that, were doing the online learning and the tech really helped them advance. And then some of them they really needed that in-person interaction with their peers, with their teachers, and just at home they were just floundering. They needed that social interaction and trying to figure out how to do it on their own. So like definitely in the classroom having those huge discrepancies, and technology for me is really kind of help bridge the gap, with me and helping with scaffolding. So, like, for example, I found some really cool, like, enriching activities. So, some of my students that, they're boom, 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 done in 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, and then you got the student in the back or the student in the front or inside that's just like, and my name goes where?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I need something that, what can I find? And because there was so many things that just like came out of the pandemic, so many virtual tours or these cool interactive online educational games that like for enrichment wise and really to kind of bring another dimension to your classroom, really now became available and easy to find where
Yeah.
before you really had to hunt and dig for it before the pandemic. But now, hey, you want to go to the Smithsonian? Sure, the whole thing's digital. What floor do you want to go on? What
Yeah.
building do you want to be in? Oh,
Yeah.
you want to go to Istanbul and Turkey? And travel and look at the whole city? Do you want to be in a helicopter? Do you want to be on the plane? Do you want to be on a boat? Like, what do you want? Like, click here. So for me, that was really cool to kind of again bridge that gap. So those students that were like, charging ahead and they're now done with the lesson and like twiddling their thumbs, it was like, hey, here's this cool game that that you can actually take the information that we were talking about when it came to catapults and trebuchets and siege warfare, and now let's see, can you actually take out a castle? So build your own trebuchet. How do you think you would build it? And put like this type of weight in it, and like how far does it go? And put
That
some great
is so
fire on
cool.
it. Yeah.
That
So
is so cool.
so I mean, it was cool. And so just being able to find those cool like tours and being able to, I can't I'm not a millionaire. I can't put you on a plane and take you to Japan, but I can definitely find a cool, website that will take us on a virtual tour of the different islands. Let's go to this island. Let's go check out this hot spring. Let's go check out this volcano. So that was pretty cool to like help those kids that, are at grade level or beyond it. And now it's like, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
But also the scaffolding, because, let's be honest, we do have kids, even in seventh grade, that they're still at like third grade level reading
Yeah.
and writing, and
Absolutely.
they're trying and trying as hard as they can, and they're in the gen ed class and they're just like feeling swamped. So for me, the cami I'm gonna
Yeah.
go actually that program that I had 2 weeks to grapple with. um it's been my go-to for those kids that are really, struggling readers and writers and typers because of this one feature. If you hit the text box, they have that little speaker at the very end where
Yeah.
you can click it, and then the kids could talk to the computer and then it types everything out. So
Yeah.
like, I just this last period I had a student who's still really struggling with, writing, and it's now what, 2 3 years since we've been back in the classroom, and he's still just having a hard time with his handwriting and forming sentences. And the kid's smart, he's got it, you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, talk to the computer, pull up Cami, put your, thoughts down on your paper, on the screen, You can like have Cami read it back to you. You can edit it down. Then now that you have it on the screen, transfer it to the paper. Because you trying to write it down, you're just getting lost and, you can't even read your own writing. Well,
Yeah.
just talk to the computer, have it like write it all down, record it for you, then listen back to it and then edit it and then transfer it to your paper.
Yeah.
So,
That text to speech or speech to text feature in like Cami or Google Docs or Google Slide, like all of it is so good for those accessibility features are so good for our kids with those needs.
mhm.
And then you had mentioned before to me Screencastify and how you're using that to like record things for your students. Like what types of things are you recording for kids?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like when you had, I'm very camera shy, believe it or not. Like,
Most people are. Most people
but,
don't like to be on camera and they
oh
don't
my
like to hear
God,
their own voice. Like,
girl,
definitely, it's not
I
just you.
know. When before pandemic, if you wanted to capture me in a video or a picture, I was like the ghost. I was like, nope, nope, not gonna find Burton anywhere in there. But
Yeah.
then, it really made you, with the pandemic and doing those Google Meets and then recording the Google Meets and then like playing back to see which was the best recording to put online for your students who couldn't sign in. And I really had a close look at the way my tone is, my cadence, how quickly do I actually talk, my eye contact,
Yeah.
like looking at and I, after like that whole year, I really started to become more comfortable on camera, but then also like be aware of um, uh, I didn't realize
Yeah.
how much I said that. Like,
It's
hurt
so
myself,
true. It's
hurt
so
myself,
true.
go back. And so, I mean, just all of that training and actually seeing myself and how do I teach and the way my hands and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think made me more effective in the classroom. And those Screencastify videos that I made for those students, it's like, that's good content because you still have kids that are going out on independent study for one reason or another. They transfer from online schooling back into the classroom. And like they need to catch up, or you have kids that, for whatever reason, family dynamic, they miss a week. And that Screencastify has really helped again make it equitable in the classroom that yeah, you maybe missed the lecture yesterday, but I've recorded it and now I'm going to post it with my notes or post it with like, Pear Deck, and you
Yeah.
can now listen and go back and you're still getting that same content. Or like some of my students, I've been using it as like parent teacher conferences. I mean, we're busy as teachers, sitting there and
Yeah.
typing it out and trying to like make it clear and concise. Like you really have a lot of thought going into some of those emails.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get that barrage back of like a bazillion questions. You're like, whoa, 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 how did you even get there from that email?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. The in
So
between the lines interpretations.
exactly. And
Yeah.
you're just like, okay, I'm not really understanding that. So I started using Screencastify when I was getting those emails saying, hey, I really don't like, my kid's failing your class. What can they do? And so I started making these recordings where it was like, okay, here's the grade in Aries. These are the missing assignments. Let's work smarter, not harder. Let's go for the high, valuable ones. And then here's my Google Classroom. And this is where the assignment is. And this is how you can access it. Oh, and here's like this review video, or here's this instructional video, or here's this lecture video. So you can like sit right there with your son, your daughter, and you can listen and follow along with my instructions and replay it. And I have had so much like amazing feedback from families that are just like, thank you. That made it so easy. I was able to sit down with my granddaughter. I was able to sit down with my son. I was able to sit down with my brother and like go through it and figure
Yeah.
out what to do. And then boom, I'm getting the work.
Yeah.
And it's not 50 bazillion emails going back and forth trying to explain to like click this box,
Yeah. And so I'm curious too, like when you make one of those videos for parents, like how long does it take you to record and get that sent to a parent?
Not very long, just because I've been like I was doing them during COVID because
Right?
that was just the quickest way to talk versus trying to do a Google Voice. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It was just like, I'm just gonna make this video. So I mean, just the amount of time that you would probably prep to be able to do that phone call home. That's kind of how much time I like kind of pull up their grade. I pull up the stuff in Google Classroom. I already have it preset. And then I just like pretend like I'm talking on the phone with them. And then I
Yeah.
just hit record and then, hey, this is how Johnny's doing in my class. These are the grades that they, have right now. This is where they can click. And,
Yeah.
the video isn't very long. It's from 3 to 7 minutes, maybe 10, if,
If there's
It's
a lot, yeah.
there's a lot, but somewhere in the range of like 3 to 5 minutes,
Yeah.
just to be able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is their grade. This is where you could find the
Yeah.
information. If you need help, please reach out, and
Yeah.
then done, send. And it's
I
quick.
love that. Like Screencastify is such a versatile tool that you can use for so many different things. And you're the first teacher I actually had tell me that they've used Screencastify to communicate how kids are doing in class to parents. Like they think that's a really innovative way of using the tool. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's been a game changer because, like I said, I was doing lots of calls, lots of emails, and especially during that COVID time, I'm like, what is just a way to explain? Because there's like so many new programs, and I was like, oh, it was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, I'm recording myself anyways.
Yeah.
Like, why not just record for the parent and then share with it? And then, like, again, like I said, I've been saving all of those, and I kind of now have this library that I've built up that, like, almost now every lesson or every lecture or every time I'm reviewing a quiz, like that's also really helped me too. With the scaffolding, I can now like pull my Google form. I can look and see what are my like, big missed questions,
Yeah.
do a targeted, intervention on those questions, and then go, okay, now if you need more, like you missed this question, but not very many people missed it, pull up this, review video, listen to it, you can replay it, you can jump forward, do your quiz corrections with it. And then I'm going to be walking around and again, like doing one-on-ones with you if you really need like more support,
That's so
so
great. You
like,
basically like cloned yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I
So
did.
that,
I'm
yeah,
like,
you have. I mean, you're like, okay, here's me on the screen, follow my directions. I'm going to be walking around so I can give you feedback and help. Like, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So again, and what's made that possible too is the program Duelist, which I think
Um,
you found and then shared with our site with
yeah.
Paige Bowden.
It's an
And then
extension. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so she shared that to me, and oh my gosh, again, that's like a game changer because like our students, they're so tech savvy in some areas and so lost in others. And like, when it comes to the paper, I mean, to their backpacks and to their folders, I mean, we're all like pretty much an Avid like driven site, and it's like they have that highlighted and divided and like perfectly organized. Not
Yeah.
every student, but like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they have that they have their system of highlighters and pencils, and then when you look at their computer screen, it's like blah, 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 like 20 bazillion tabs open. Like, how could you find anything?
I
How
like that. That's what tabs sound like. Blah, 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 blah.
it's just like, and trying to click it, and then they're like exiting out of stuff, and it's just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah. There's so many.
you have to organize your screen. Like us teachers, we have the comfort of having our computer screen, and then we have our
Sure.
laptop screen, and then we have the projector screen. And so you can like spread yourself out digitally all over the place in your classroom, and being able to monitor and multitask on different programs and platforms, from 5 Star to Go Guardian to monitoring a chat. And but our students only have one, and I think we forget about that. So like
Yeah.
telling them how to split your screen, have this on this side of your screen, this side on this side of your screen, or even how, like, I mean, they can access Google Docs and Google Slides, but like the Zoom feature or moving the toolbar, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
I love that you're teaching them those like digital skills within, I mean, because you're a history teacher, right? And people think like, oh, I'm a content teacher, like this is the content I have to teach, but you're embedding teaching those minor digital skills that can really help them be successful, not only in your class, but in other classes as well.
yeah, I mean, that's huge game changers. I mean, just it was like, okay, split your screen. You have up our digital map on this side, and we're now doing this mapping activity on a Google slide on the other, and you can't see your Google slide.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to zoom into the Google slide to see the tasks that you're supposed to perform on that slide, and like being able to then do a text box, and again, like that dimension. On the screen, they kind of get lost. I mean, they can get around Go Guardian like no other. You know what I
So
mean?
like
But
the digital organization, I guess, is like the challenge that your students face.
yeah, I see that too. And the same thing with like their emails and their Google Drives and stuff like that. Like you have them pull up their email and they're sitting at like 10,000 emails, like learning how to turn off notifications from your Google Classrooms, or,
Yeah.
or you say, okay, let's, pull this up in your Google Drive, and it's just a list of everything that they've opened and copied. And it's like, how could you find it? That's like your backpack. You just, open it up and there's an explosion of papers. So like you
The
have to
same
create
thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you've mentioned so many tools. I think we've talked about Cami, Screencastify. You mentioned Duelist. You've mentioned Pear Deck, Go Guardian, the Google Workspace suite. Like you use things in there. I'm probably forgetting one that you've mentioned, but if you had to pick one that's like your favorite tech tool, which one would it be?
Um,
Well, okay, let me
for,
rephrase that. Which one
I
is your favorite and which one is your favorite to like have the kids use?
So if I was just gonna boil it down for me and communication issues, I mean, communication things from either like lessons or parent communications, definitely Screencastify. I
Mhm.
use that a lot to record lectures, and I'm always adding. It's not like you have to sit there and record for the whole weekend everything that you're doing. It's like, oh, okay, I got like an extra 10 minutes, and I'm going to be doing this lesson, next week. I'll sit down and just record my instructions. There's no students, there's no I can give the best delivery of instruction. you
Yeah,
know?
right. So concise
And
without being
so
interrupted. Like, hey, miss, can I go to the bathroom? Like, right when you're giving instructions. Is that not the worst?
exactly. Or my computer just crashed. Where's the charger? You're like, oh, you just ruined the flow.
Ruin my flow of my instructions. Okay, so Screencastify for
Yeah. So
instructions, for parent communication.
yeah, but then like for students to be able to, like I tell them, like to work on your screen, definitely Duelist. Like I have all of my kids have it downloaded. All of them know how to split their screens on a vertical axis, on a horizontal axis, and what's the different ratios. So if I'm watching a video, taking notes on it, what should that be? If I'm going to be analyzing text, how should the screen be? And like what's the ratio for that? If I'm doing a search and I have to like fill in my Google slide tasks, like what should the ratio and how should it look? So that for organization has been like my go-to. Now, when it comes to like lectures in the class, doing direct instruction, guided instruction with like a me do, you do, we do kind of situation, and then doing check for understanding, Pear Deck.
Pear
Pear Deck
Deck.
for me has like again like brought my lessons to a whole nother level. You already have to like chunk and chew the information. You stop for 10 minutes. You teach for 10 minutes, you stop for like 2 to 5, they grapple with the information, then you move on. So like having those intentional breaks in my Google slide presentation with Pear Deck and having them do a check for understanding task for me, whether it's drawing a picture of an oasis, doing a drag and drop, or a written response or reflection question, I can get real-time data as to like, did they understand the last 10 minutes of me delivering the information and going through content? And if they did, great, I can move on. If not, then it's like, put on the brakes.
I love that. Like you're
Let's go
using
back.
it to like adjust right there on the spot based on what the kids need. And another reason why I love Pear Deck too is like it's really easy to see who's participating and who's not because it's like they have to follow along with
Yeah.
you.
And
And
there's two different views. And I tell the kids that too. I'm like, hey, there's the anonymous view we're going to be working with where like your name is not attached to anything. And so you can drag and drop and type and spell, and not feel like you're being judged. But just know, and I show them the other screen, I'm like, it's all recorded. And
and
it's all
like I will know.
I will know, and
I
I will
will.
lock that screen, and I will switch that setting, and then you, sir, we're gonna have a conversation,
Yeah,
or you, ma'am.
exactly. Yeah.
So again, like having that clear communication and setting up that assignment, so
And the
that way you're not
digital
like,
accountability.
yes, exactly. So that way you're not like toggling over, and you have like a SpongeBob drawing, and you're like, yeah, that's not what I was going for.
Yes. Well, I will definitely link all these wonderful tools and resources that you're discussing like in the show notes so that if anybody wants to look back and see what like if they've never heard of Duelist, maybe they can go check it out. So another question I have for you is, technology, as we know, is ever evolving. So how do you personally like stay up to date on all of these platforms and tools and keep yourself like in the know about all the tech?
Networking. I definitely go around and talk to other teachers, other content areas, grade levels. I've been watching your stuff and doing my own little Google search and YouTube videos, and it's just kind of like I just network, and something comes across and I'm just like, ooh, that looks really cool. Like there was a video I think you shared on just like how to manage Google Classroom and like give feedback and like seeing this little icon where you can actually create your own library of comments and not have to constantly
Oh
be
yeah.
typing out
The
like,
Google
I'm
Classroom
like,
comment bank.
oh my gosh, that
Game
was a
changer.
it's been there forever, and
It's
it could
been
have
there.
saved me hours of typing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so or like the little speaker one that you said, where again, you can just record your content and or your comment, and then you can place it on a Google Doc or whatever. It was like a
Yeah.
voice recorder, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so again, just kind of. I'm not like sitting there and spending hours scouring, but just keeping, where when I see your emails come across, or when I'm having PLC time, I'm like, hey, does anyone ever seen a new like, app? Does anyone have a new program? And talking about apps, I'm going to do
Yeah.
it for history.
Just
So,
conversation
um,
and dialogue, right?
exactly. So in that same like PLC meeting, we have a new teacher on our campus, Southward, in history. And so she came across this video about like Hello History, this really cool app where it's like students could have a conversation with a historical figure. So it's kind of like paper, but it's not a real person. It's an AI. And it's like this guided conversation, but the students are organically asking questions, and they can get like historical content back. And it was like, this is really cool. The picture moves and you have a little text conversation. And I was like,
So
I've
cool.
never seen that. Yeah, I was like, I've never seen that before. That is really like, I mean, I can have my students read about, Sir Isaac Newton in the textbook or in the article, but how cool is to have this digital conversation and a text conversation? I mean, because the kids are always texting. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's text with an intentional person. Let's
Yeah.
text with Martin Luther. Let's text
It's
with
like
this
an
person.
AI version of Sir Isaac Newton, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
so cool.
exactly. And then they're
Dude,
giving content. So,
AI is like definitely changing the learning landscape as well. I'm always saying like, I'm a tech specialist, right? But I'm always learning about new tech tools and things that are out there because it literally evolves so fast and there's so much out there that I don't even feel like that word specialist could be applied to anyone because it's
yeah.
like so crazy. But I just learned about a platform called Magic School AI. Oh,
Mm.
it's like it'll blow your mind. I'm going to link it in the show notes, but definitely go check that out because it's a great tool as far as like making teacher planning and like increasing your efficiency on the back end.
Hmm.
It's so good, so powerful. So I'm gonna send it to you, but I'm gonna link it in the show notes for our listeners for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, but no, that's how I kind of like stay up to date and like kind of what's going on is definitely networking with my colleagues, and seeing what's popping on the internet and things like that. And then once I find it, then I like research it and check it out. Like that
Yeah,
Hello History, it's been just originally an app for phones, but in the next month or two they're rolling out a platform for Chromebooks.
yeah,
And so like, and I reached out to you about that, going, hey, what do you think about this? So like that was again like a really cool educational tool, so that can just bring another dynamic. So
yeah. So,
you
and
know
you mentioned networking with your colleagues. I know you guys have PLC time. How do you guys like structure time to have conversations about these things? Like, how often do you get to meet and really dive into technology and tech
yeah,
integration with your colleagues?
yeah. So we have our Wednesday PLC time, and so we've kind of been revamping it at our school site. So we have like our site designated topics, and then we have our staff meetings, but then we have like our rotating kind of groups that we talk with. So you have your traditional like department in person, and then like our grade level in person. But this is a new thing that we've done at our school site last year and this year, is we've been doing like department breakouts and really utilizing again kind of that Google Meet. It's like, okay, let's just have like a quick like little powwow. Let's meet. Any like burning ideas, topics, conversations. DO needs this information, or admin needs this information. It's like a 5, 10, 15 minute like conversation. But like, why walk across the whole campus, especially like at our site? Like, we're separated by grade level, we're separated by department. So like, two of us are over here in the 500s, the others are over in the 300s. And it's like
Yeah,
the walk time, to come over here, and then you stop and you chit chat, and then it's like you look at your time and it's like, oh, it's 20 minutes into the meeting and
yeah,
nobody's here yet, so or like we've wasted 30 minutes and really hasn't accomplished much. So we decided to, with our breakouts, do a Google Meet. So we'd all sign into that Google Meet at that set time, have that quick check in, check out, crucial information share out, And then after that, then we sign off, but then we are working with our grade level content partners and we're already in that same building. So it's like literally just popping over to the next door and really utilizing that time to like be able to share content like, hey, what type of tech have you found? Or how have you been incorporating this into your lesson? Or giving feedback and reflection. Hey, this is what I got. And like, this wasn't so successful in this area. How can we modify it, make it better? So
Yeah.
being able to kind of like think outside the box with that PLC time that like, the meeting doesn't have to be the whole time in person. You
Yeah.
can like mix and match kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, that's really smart and innovative, like definitely working smarter, not harder, and using the Google Meet to help you meet your like team goals and really just have conversations about what's best for kids, especially in regards to tech integration, and increasing productivity. And speaking of productivity, I'm wondering, when are you most productive?
Well, like 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm dead asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, just so you know.
I
That's not
know,
my
and that's
productive time.
I know. And that's normally I am too. I am dead asleep. And then all of a sudden I just roll over and then it's like, boom, something just popped in my head. And I'm like, oh, if I try to keep sleeping on this, I won't sleep. So I know myself. So I have to like get up. I have to like write it down like mad scientist moment and just
Just get it out like
sometimes
brain
it's,
dump.
I'm tripping over like kid shoes and stuff like that, half asleep and finding my paper, finding it like half chewed on crayon and just like writing it down. And then, and sometimes, and then I'll come back. And then finally, when I've like, I tell my husband, I have to purge
The
my
mental
brain.
purge. Yep.
And then
Yep.
like get it all out and then like go back to sleep and then like sleep on it. And then I wake up the next morning and I look at my crayon notes. And I'm like, not saying it's brilliance all the time. So sometimes there's definitely the madness. I'm like, what were you thinking, Burton? Like, no. So that was, you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning for this madness. But then there's other times where I'm like, oh, that was genius. That was a good idea.
Genius
I
hour
don't know.
at
It's
3 a.m.
I know. I don't know. I think just because all of us are operating in like, you have to be aware of, who's in your classroom, conversation, asking all these questions, balancing, phone calls from, the office and then like tech problems. And I don't know. I think when my brain finally just like settles and then all of a sudden it's just like, bloop, something just pops up and it's like, ooh, that was good. That was good. Let me
I love
write
that.
that down. Yeah. But then like sometimes too, like when I'm driving home and or driving to work and it's just like I just drop the kids off and having my coffee and just kind of like thinking, reflecting. And I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna be talking about this. Oh, wouldn't it be funny? Because I always think of this too. I'm like, wouldn't it be fun to have my students actually do a trading activity outside? And they're like, and then it starts to dovetail. Maybe bandits attack them. How would they attack them? Oh yeah, they have to ask them a question. If they ask them, and like all of a sudden I start this like rabbit hole thing, and then same thing. I have to like find my chewed up crayon and write it down. And then
I love that.
and then
I
I'm
love
like,
that, like the creative inspiration and just like comes to you and you're using that, the things that are coming into your mind, it sounds like, are like lesson ideas, instructional ideas, like things you can do with your kids. And I think that leads me to my next question, which I think I already know the answer to, but what's the best part of teaching for you?
for me, I love that moment where you're like, okay, now work. And you turn and you're like, okay, who do I need to help? And then you're like, oh, wow, you're turning and you're talking and you're like right onto it. You know what I mean? And then they're having like this share and it's just organic. And they're like, and then you like are walking around and you hear them like re-saying things that you said and explaining it. And I'm like, I love that. That's just like for me, makes it why I want to teach, because it's like, okay, we just did this, let's go. And then you're like, okay, who do I need to kind of go back and like help get back onto task? And then when you turn around and you have that moment, it's just like everybody's working,
Yeah.
everybody's on task, and the conversation is flowing. Like this, just this week, I was my Islam unit totally crashed and burned. The website disappeared.
Oh
I'm
no.
like, I've been using you for years. You can't, website cannot be found. So then I'm like scrambling, trying to like figure out like, okay, what's a way that I can do Islam, which is like it could be a very controversial, political charged topic that's like neutral, bias, but get the like that standard base, all that information in there. And so I came up with this like group rotation where they had these documents they had to like speed date and break it down, and then like this like scavenger hunt worksheet that they had to then like locate the question and fill in the answer and work as a team. And like I was like, okay, this might be too much. I might again might be on that crazy train. It was just like too much, too many dynamics going on. And then like to see it like do that first rotation and the kids share out and they're breaking down the document and they're marking it up and then like having conversations and going, oh, I found it online this, and then I found it for this box. And like, I was just sitting back there and like you almost have that like teary-eyed moment where you're like,
it's working. And I love that. And I think like so many teachers can relate to you on that, because that's like, it's our heart and like it's what we want to see happening in our class. And it just makes us feel so good when those moments happen. When all the tech is working good, all the instructional strategies are on point, there's no fights breaking out, like no kids are being disrespectful, like it's all coming together. And I think that's like, the meat and potatoes of teaching, and that's what like drives us. But like sometimes, and you mentioned through this conversation, we run into challenges like the website breaking down or something crazy happening with kids, which especially teaching middle school could be any array of things.
oh yes,
So
yes.
teachers that might be, burning out, or maybe they're just like hesitant to try something like station rotations or trying a new technology tool, what advice do you have for people, for these teachers?
Have your crisis moment, have your panic moment, but then try it. Like you don't know until you try it. It's like, I have kids. Oh, hold on. There's this. Hold on.
It's okay. She's recording on her prep period. So announcements just came on in the middle of the podcast recording. It's totally fine.
Hey, but if you're a volleyball player, it's time to go.
Cool. It's totally cool. Happens.
No, yeah, okay. So back to that conversation. So again, like, I have 3 young kids, and like you spend all this time and energy and cooking dinner, and you put it on the plate, it looks amazing, and they're like, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like,
they're like, Mom, salmon tostadas? Like, what is that? Why?
I know.
Like, it's good. It's healthy. Eat it.
Just try it.
Just try it.
I know. So like I tell them, I'm like, okay, smell it, taste it, think on it, come back to it, then tell me if you like it or not. Like you can't just immediately reject it. You're like, ooh, it's lumpy. Ooh, it's smelly. Ooh, it's pink. Like you gotta. Sorry, I have a daughter, and then I got 2 sons, and it's just like, oh, what's the excuse this time? I'm like, I don't understand. It's too small. It's too big. I'm like, just what you guys come up with is amazing. But like, it's the kind of same thing in the approach with teaching. I mean, it can look scary. It can look smelly. It can look, gross. It can, whatever it is, like that analogy with the food, like this looks so overwhelming. There's so many steps. Oh my gosh, I have to record myself. But like, once you kind of go, okay, what's the worst? I reject it. I spit it out. Oh, well, okay, move on, and then that next thing, oh my gosh, it could be so yummy. Wow, this was a game changer. This now just became my favorite thing. So again, like that's the kind of same thing when it comes to the approach of teaching, whether it's a digital program, whether it's a lesson, that, going into groups or doing a think, pair, share, or a document analysis, or even a hands-on project. What? I'm going to have my kids build a camel with clay? Are you kidding me?
I can already see the mess in the classroom.
I did it last week. All right. It was beautiful. But
I need pictures.
So again, like, just don't let yourself hold yourself back. Try it. Laugh with it, have fun with it, and it's okay that, if the kids are having fun with it, that you don't necessarily have to go, okay, the next day I have to move into this topic.
Yeah.
If they're engaged and it's going deeper, expand on it. But then at the same time, if you see it starting to fizzle out, don't like go, I allotted 10 minutes. It must be 10 minutes. Okay, like all right, it's wrapped up in 5. Let's move on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, again, just that flexibility and just that willingness to try, because you never know, this can become your next go-to teaching, strategy or teaching tech tool, and you didn't even know about it, and it can be a huge game changer and eliminate, classroom management issues,
Absolutely.
communication, or bring in that student engagement piece that you've been struggling with. So again, like,
Just try it. Yeah.
taste it, explore with it,
I love
mix
that.
it in with something else, put a little salt on it, put a little pepper on it, put a little hot sauce,
I
something,
like it. I love the food analogy.
You can tell it was close to lunch. I haven't had lunch.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tasha, for talking with me today. This has been an awesome conversation. I cannot wait to get this out there for teachers to listen to. I know you've got like a minute to your bell rings and students come in, so I'll say bye, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Blending In podcast. I hope you gleaned some inspiration to blend in EdTech into your instruction. You can find show notes and resources from today's episode on my website, blendinginpodcast.com. If you loved what you heard today, leave a review, follow the podcast on socials, and hit the subscribe button to get notified when new episodes are released. Until next time, don't hesitate to innovate and integrate.